Now at 5, Jasper County authorities investigate the stabbing death of a Carl Junction man. Plus, area fire officials put out a warning not to burn anything during the current dry and windy conditions. And
the Supreme Court rules states can't kick former President Trump off the ballot. I'm Nicole Skenga outside the High Court with details on the unanimous decision.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Jasper County authorities search for 2 persons of interest in the investigation of a stabbing death. This is KOAM News at 5. I'm Tanya Bach. The incident happened Saturday evening near 7th Street and State Line Road. When authorities arrived, they found a man, 36-year-old Seth Langford of Carl Junction, with severe injuries from an apparent stabbing. They took him to the hospital where he later died from his injuries. Detectives are now searching for 2 persons of interest in the case, 36-year-old Paul Phillips of Seneca and 30-year-old Scott Burleson of Wyandotte, Oklahoma. If you know their whereabouts, you're asked to contact the Jasper County Sheriff's Office. Meteorologist Lindsay Gaffney joins us with a first look at your forecast.
All right, so we did beat a record today with our temperature being 78 degrees. That was set at 153, and our last record was back in 1963. Now, we don't have any rain right now in the area. We do see the clouds moving through. However, we are expecting to see some thunderstorms developing, and we can kind of see them start to make their way in right through here, and they'll start to appear in our northeastern counties a little bit later this evening after 6 p.m. They're going to start to shift south to more of our southeastern counties as we move into the later evening hours tonight, and I'll have more details for you in just a bit.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. Areas across the 4 states are experiencing red flag warnings, a notice from officials that there is a high fire danger for the day. Now, these warnings are issued to encourage people not to try to burn anything and be aware of potential risk. Fire officials say in the current conditions, a small fire can quickly get out of hand.
Because most of the time, especially if you burn a larger amount of stuff, it may not all be out, and then the humidity can drop the next day, the wind pick up a little bit, and that's when your controlled burn that you thought was out gets fanned by the wind and the low humidities and then takes off, and then it creates a problem.
Area fire departments recommend people call them before attempting a controlled burn to see if the conditions are safe. A liberal Missouri landmark came crashing down today. Crews used a wrecking ball to tear down a grain elevator that's been there since 1950. We spoke with some residents about the demolition project. Many were sad to see it come down.
Well, I think it's foolishness. Of course, I know nothing about it. I've watched it all my life, and it's been a fixture. Wasn't hurting anybody. I have a hard time believing there was no usefulness left in it, but what do I know?
Officials with the Producers Cooperative Association say the building was demolished on the orders of BNSF Railroad. Well, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, and that includes the Oklahoma primary elections. KOAM's Amber Jenkins is live in studio with a preview.
I spoke to officials at Ottawa County Election Board in Miami. Here's what they believe voters should keep in mind. This election year, independent voters can only vote via the Democratic Party ballot. The Republican and Libertarian parties chose to keep their primaries closed, meaning independent registered voters cannot use a Republican or Libertarian ballot. Election officials also mentioned for voters to bring ID and to not wear campaign gear in the polling sites. Those voting in Oklahoma primaries can do so at the 13 polling sites between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Back to you, Tanya.
Thanks, Amber. And it's not just Oklahomans headed to the polls tomorrow. Voters in 14 other states will cast their ballots on Super Tuesday, with more than a third of the total delegates up for grabs. And that means former President Donald Trump can lock up the GOP presidential nomination with a big night. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has unanimously ruled former President Donald Trump will stay on the ballots of all 50 states. The High Court rejected an attempt by Colorado to disqualify the former president because of his actions on January 6th. Nicole Skenga is outside the Supreme Court with more on this legal win for Trump.
Well, thank you very much.
Former President Donald Trump is praising the Supreme Court for its unanimous decision to restore his name to all 2024 presidential primary ballots.
I think it will go a long way toward bringing our country together.
Voters in Colorado had tried to remove Trump from their state's ballot. They argued an insurrection clause in the Constitution's 14th Amendment disqualified him from holding office because of his attempts to undo his 2020 election loss, culminating in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. But Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled only Congress can decide how and when this constitutional provision is implemented.
And the rationale here really is we don't want states to be able to do this. You heard the justices coalesce around the idea that we're very worried states could do it alone, create this kind of patchwork when it comes to federal elections.
Today's decision leaves open the possibility that Congress could refuse to certify the election of a candidate who participated in insurrection. The court also sidestepped the issue of insurrection altogether.
The Supreme Court's decision today did not exonerate him. They did not say that January 6th wasn't an insurrection, and they did not say that he didn't engage in insurrection.
The Supreme Court has agreed to weigh in on whether Trump can be tried criminally for his actions on January 6th. Next month, the court will hear arguments about whether Trump is entitled to broad immunity from prosecution from acts allegedly committed while in office. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, Washington.
A former Massachusetts Air National Guard member has pled guilty to leaking highly classified military documents and other national security secrets. Jack Texiera admitted his guilt in Boston federal court to each of the 6 counts he was charged with last year. The 22-year-old was accused of inappropriately accessing top-secret military documents containing specific sensitive information about the nation's involvement in Russia's war with Ukraine. Still ahead, the nation's 2 largest pharmacy chains will start selling an abortion pill in certain states. Plus, researchers are studying the effects of deep brain stimulation to treat depression. Those stories next in Health Watch. Topping today's Health Watch, CVS and Walgreens, the 2 biggest pharmacy chains in the U.S., will start selling the abortion pill mifepristone in certain stores in several states. Following a rule change at the FDA, the medication will be available in states where abortion is legal. CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder discussed this development on CBS Mornings.
Still need a prescription. So this is not over the counter, to be very clear. You still need a prescription. But in the past, access has been either through specialty clinics, which stock the medication, or through telemedicine and mail order pharmacy. And so it really does open up avenues for women to access.
The cash price for mifepristone is expected to be about $79, although some women will be able to use health insurance to purchase the drug. The latest COVID booster shot cuts the risk of moderate or severe COVID by more than half. A nationwide study found encouraging signs the updated COVID booster does protect against the latest variants. Doctors say Americans should expect the CDC to recommend annual boosters going forward. Researchers are using deep brain stimulation to treat the most severe forms of depression. As Michael George explains, doctors compare the experimental treatment to a pacemaker for the brain.
Emily Hollenbeck suffers from severe depression that often left her barely able to move.
My family has a very long history with mental illness and depression specifically. My parents actually both took their lives before I was 30.
Hollenbeck tried everything from medication to electroconvulsive therapy before having electrodes implanted in her brain.
At first I was blown away because the concept of it seemed so just intense, like it's brain surgery.
She's now one of a few hundred people treated with deep brain stimulation for depression. Dr. Brian Coppell directs Mount Sinai's Center for Neuromodulation.
Very, very simply, DBS, deep brain stimulation, is a pacemaker for the brain.
It is giving small amounts of current. We deliver it at 130 hertz, and it's on all the time.
Hollenbeck says the effects were almost immediate. The heaviness lifted, and she was able to find pleasure in the everyday.
Is there a cafe or a cool restaurant? Like these things wouldn't even be on my radar with depression. They wouldn't even be possibilities.
She regularly sends brain data to researchers, logging onto a tablet and placing a remote above the pacemaker-type device in her chest.
Layers of data going from self-report, scales, to how you look, how you sound, how you move.
Hollenbeck still takes medication for depression and needs ongoing care, but she's convinced of this.
If I hadn't had DBS, I'm pretty sure I would not be alive today.
Researchers hope DBS will soon be approved for millions of Americans with treatment-resistant depression. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Some doctors are skeptical, concerned for potential risk like bleeding, stroke, or infection after surgery. What common everyday chemical may be linked to childhood obesity? A study by the American Society for Microbiology found bisphenol A, or BPA, which is used in eyewear, water bottles, and epoxy resins, can interfere with the hormone functions of the body, especially in obese children. The study's authors say more research needs to be done on the health impact of microplastics. That's a look at today's health news. A little later, with Wendy's announcing a new price surging plan, we'll see how that'll impact the cost of your food.
And we've got some thunderstorm chances rolling into this evening and through the week. We'll have more details after the break. Well, today was pretty cloudy and windy. However, we do have some thunderstorm chances as we move into this evening. Taking a look outside, it's our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort camera. You can see it's pretty cloudy, overcast conditions. It was partly cloudy earlier today, but those clouds have rolled in as we see the rain chances start to make their way closer to us. Now, right now, the current rain is just northeast of Kansas City, making its way into our area a little bit later this evening, starting around 6 p.m. And there's also another system actually down in Louisiana making its way through Mississippi. So there's two pretty severe weather systems, although we're only getting the tail end of the northern one. Tonight, our low is going to be 46 degrees, and we do have chances of rain and thunderstorms all evening. However, it's just for the northeast to the east counties that we're going to see thunderstorm chances. We have a low risk for our eastern counties and our southeastern counties, and that's just due to the instability at the surface, possibly building these storms up a little bit more than what we're seeing. Now, like I said, it's the instability that's being built. If it gets strong enough, then we could see some wind threats and some hail threats. If you take a look at the systems in Chicago, that they are already getting hail and pretty significant severe weather. Now, starting this afternoon, late this evening, we're going to see the thunderstorms pop up. Joplin, Nevada, around 7 p.m. is when we could start to expect these thunderstorms to make their way in. Now, it's going to continue on, still just shifting eastward. And as we continue through the evening, 10 p.m. tonight, switching to mostly just a heavy rainfall through this area. It's right on that front. That's where we're getting the development of these storms. Now, continuing on through the later evening hours, we have this low risk for these southern counties. However, right now we're not seeing much. It's all depending on if these storms build up enough instability as it gets to these southern counties. So right now it's not showing much. However, like right here, developing right after it leaves our counties, that could start to actually happen a little bit earlier as we get closer to this event. Then flash forward to Thursday, we have another chance of rain. Now Thursday and Friday, we're going to see heavier amounts of rain throughout the evening. 7 a.m., you're going to see some pretty heavy rainfall, possibly some thunderstorms. That's going to continue on all day. 3 p.m. still in our northern counties, heavy patches of rain. And then even through Friday, we're going to see some heavy rain. Now, we have a lot of rain chances. Thursday through Friday, heaviest amount of rain that we'll see, hopefully getting up to ½ an inch on Thursday and ½ an inch on Friday, clearing out early Saturday morning, early hours before you even wake up, start your day. Then it'll switch to mostly cloudy skies. Then as we move into later weekend, Sunday, temperatures start to warm back up, sunny skies, and by early next week, we'll be back to sunny and warmer temperatures.
I like that forecast for the week, though. We need the rain.
We do
can
need
always
the
use
rain.
the rain, and the temperatures are great.
Yeah, they're not
too
getting
warm, not too cold.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm seeing a good usage of no AC or heater for the majority of the day.
Oh yeah, I've been doing that for a while.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. Well, a merger no more. Coming up, why JetBlue is pulling out of a deal to buy Spirit Airlines. Topping today's Consumer Watch, today JetBlue Airways pulled out of its deal to purchase Spirit Airlines. The decision comes in the wake of a federal court ruling blocking the deal from taking place on antitrust grounds. The Justice Department had argued airfares could go up if Spirit was no longer an independent airline. As part of its decision to end the deal, JetBlue agreed to pay Spirit $69 million. Well, the price of your burger and fries could be going up depending on what time of the day it is. Fast food giant Wendy's announced it will begin surge pricing items next year during its busiest hours, much like Uber. Jolene Kent takes a look at the latest way companies are raising prices.
Food is taking a bigger bite out of shoppers' incomes, the most in 3 decades, and be prepared to shell out more.
You'll never guess what we're doing to the Baconator.
Wendy's announced it'll start testing dynamic pricing on digital menu boards next year, a form of surge pricing like Uber and Lyft. Artificial intelligence will suggest menu items and determine whether to raise prices based on demand, location, and time. Wendy's says, for example, it might suggest a cool Frosty on a warm summer day. This will allow us to be more nimble and flexible with pricing.
Why introduce this when customers can easily just go somewhere else?
Clearly, the company is trying to find ways to boost its share price and improve its profit margins, but it could come at the expense of losing some faithful customers.
Cereal! Yeah! Beyond the burgers, Kellogg is also under fire after its CEO suggested consumers struggling with inflation could eat cereal for dinner.
If you think about the cost of cereal for a family versus what they might otherwise do, that's going to be much more affordable.
Backlash online was swift.
This fool making $4 million a year. You think he's feeding his kids cereal for dinner?
It's a tough sell because cereal prices have surged more than 25% compared to pre-pandemic.
Well, it rings a little bit like the French Revolution, let them eat cereal. And it does sort of not read the room very well. Families are really struggling to afford bringing food to the table to feed everyone at the table. And now they're suggesting cereal for dinner. It just seems like he's missing the point here.
Jolene Kent, CBS News.
Well, what you pay for groceries continues to rise. The financial firm Moody's says compared to 3 years ago, Americans on average are now spending nearly $1,200 more per year on groceries alone. The European Union fined Apple $2 billion for violating its competition laws. It's the bloc's first ever antitrust penalty against the U.S. tech giant. Spotify claimed Apple required it and other music streaming services to pay a 30% fee on purchases made through Apple's in-app payment system. Apple responded saying the EU did not uncover any credible evidence of consumer harm. The company plans to appeal the fine. Well, final check of the forecast is next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, the unexpected benefits of a weight loss drug that could help those struggling with alcohol. And then on KOAM News at 6, Missouri State Highway Patrol investigates the death of a Springfield man found in a Lamar landfill. Plus, we'll have more on how Oklahoma election officials are preparing for tomorrow's presidential primary. And the Girard girls basketball team is headed to state. We'll hear how they are preparing. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Last check of the weather.
So we do see some thunderstorm chances tonight after 6 p.m. till about midnight. And then we won't see any more rain until late Wednesday, with the heaviest amount of rain Thursday and Friday, possibly some thunderstorms as well, clearing out early Saturday morning. After that, the rest of next week is looking pretty clear.
Yeah, we'll need it after that, sounds like. All right, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for joining us. The CBS Evening News is next, and of course, we'll be right back here for KOAM News at 6, and we'll see you then. Have a great evening and an even better tomorrow.